Today's episode commences with Jill experiencing a vision of a young lady. We'll discover this lady is the initial heiress to the Rafi kingdom, designated Alindia. They are conversing, and the princess states, "If my recollection is accurate, you are Crown Prince Gerald's betrothed, correct?" Jill responds, informing her they will apprehend her as a captive of conflict, but safeguard everyone's existence if her troops capitulate. Abruptly, Jill awakens. The setting transitions to the dawn, where Prince Hadis is conversing with Jill. He has procured her winged serpents, stating he acquired them from his sibling. Jill is ecstatic and remarks how she's perpetually envisioned soaring upon a winged serpent, but then she recalls that winged serpents despise mystical energies. That's when one of the winged serpents, Rafi, addresses her and states, "Fear not, madam. Winged serpents only detest malevolent mystical energies." Jill inquires if everyone can perceive the winged serpent, and he informs her, "Nay, only mortals can perceive me." Then a petite creature emerges from Jill's satchel. She names him Sudi. She clarifies that she obtained authorization from the prince for Sudi to escort her. Shortly thereafter, some individuals approach to assist them, but they all appear apprehensive of the winged serpents and decline to approach them. Jill reassures everyone, there's no cause for alarm. Winged serpents are astute and placid beings. Then Prince Hadis addresses Jill, stating, "Once the essential preparations and designations are finalized in the metropolis, I will dispatch someone. Until then, you are the administrator of this territory." Jill concurs, and shortly they all ascend upon the winged serpents. The townspeople bid them farewell, and Jill remarks to the prince, "It's astonishing that you've succeeded in shielding this locale, your majesty." During the journey through the heavens, Jill is reveling in the experience, but the others are not as enthusiastic. They are fearful of the altitude. As twilight descends, they halt to establish an encampment. Jill and the prince converse, and she learns he is the intermediate offspring among 7 descendants, precisely like herself. He informs her, "I possess an elder sister from a different matriarch, and additional siblings my age, but the majority of them perished due to a hex." He appends, "Individuals disdain me because of it. They might trouble you as well because of me." Jill consoles him, stating she will defend him against any adversary, just as when she fractured a lance in two to triumph in a battle. As their voyage progresses, they finally espy the metropolis from afar. They are awestruck by its splendor, but then, unexpectedly, mystical defensive obstructions materialize and commence assaulting them. They are all astounded and endeavor to evade the assaults. Jill observes the obstructions are targeting the king's winged serpent particularly, so she leaps off to combat them. That's when a warrior emerges and assaults her, lacerating her arm. Just as the warrior is poised to deliver another strike, Prince Hadis arrives at the final instant and rescues her. Jill ends up plummeting because the warrior's blade depleted all her mystical vitality. The prince seizes her, but the warrior delivers a potent blow to his back, harming both of them and knocking them to the earth. Now both Jill and the prince are injured. At that juncture, the man speaks and states, "I perceive I neglected to eliminate you. I am incredulous that even this blade couldn't suppress your magic. You truly are a monstrosity in every connotation of the term." We ascertain this man is his paternal uncle, named George. He discloses that the blade he's wielding is the genuine celestial blade and states, "The sole rationale you've remained emperor is due to that counterfeit celestial blade. Your elder brother was so apprehensive of your malevolent stratagems that he committed the blunder of presuming it was the authentic one." Jill interjects, proclaiming he is the true emperor, but George dismisses her, stating, "This is a familial affair. Remain uninvolved. I've already dispatched pronouncements throughout the kingdom. You're merely a charlatan who declared himself emperor, and you're not the serpent emperor." He assaults them once more, but they scarcely achieve an escape. The setting transitions to Jill and Prince Hadis, who were rescued by Rafi the winged serpent. However, Rafi is too depleted to move after shielding them. That evening, Jill commences tending to the prince's injuries and inquires, "Is this your sanctuary, your majesty?" He responds, "I presume it is, as everything we require to remain here for several days is present. I never envisioned I'd actually have to utilize it. Let's simply hope the adversary doesn't locate us." Jill checks in, inquiring if he experiences any discomfort, but he assures her, "It's merely a superficial wound. I believe we'll be all right. There's a winged serpent's nest nearby, typically situated in the gorges and vales surrounding the Rachia Mountains, where winged serpents deposit their offspring. Rafi instructed me to remain distant from it. He stated I'd be slain instantaneously if I ventured too close. Jill is astounded that even Rafi cannot approach the nest. She contemplates her depleted magic and how she cannot perceive the winged serpent in her present condition. In her thoughts, Jill recollects that George is the Emperor's youngest paternal uncle. His severe eradication of adversaries resulted in his declaration of the Emperor as a spurious sovereign, igniting what became recognized as the Spurious Emperor's insurrection. Jill then reproaches herself, stating, "If I had been more prudent, your magic wouldn't have been suppressed by that blade." The prince consoles her. "They were pursuing me, not you. Your deeds and judgments were appropriate. No one could have foreseen my paternal uncle possessing that weapon." He ponders where George procured such a blade. Then, in a susceptible instant, he embraces Jill and states, "It was frightening because I lack sufficient potency. I apologize for subjecting you to this. If you persist in blaming yourself, I'll simply have to console you even further." Suddenly, Camilla interjects, stating they need to locate a secure location to seek assistance. The area therein shares a boundary with Kredos, governed by one of the 3 prominent ducal lineages. These lineages typically maintain neutrality in power conflicts, but the prince reveals that the airborne there was one of the individuals who perished on his birthday, believed to be attributed to his hex. This disclosure diminishes their spirits. They feel bereft of hope until the prince proclaims, "That's not accurate. I trust the celestial blade will revert to its full potency in 6 months. There's also Jill's magic to consider, and my uncle's blade must fracture by then. A blade retaining that much potency cannot contain it indefinitely. Waiting is our optimal course of action. Proceeding directly into the enemy's snare is a detrimental notion anyway." He emphasizes that their precedence should be security and evading notice while devising a strategy to retaliate. A month elapses in this manner. Jill, exasperated, states, "We must take action already. Your paternal uncle is behaving as if he owns the metropolis. Let's formulate a scheme to reclaim it. I understand you stated we wouldn't act immediately, but I never imagined we'd actually do nothing. All we've done day after day is cultivate produce." She turns to Camilla for her perspective, only to be astonished when Camilla states, "I never anticipated it, but agrarian existence isn't so dreadful." Even Zach concurs, leaving Jill even more irritated. In addition to that, they discover wanted notices with their likenesses displayed everywhere. Jill fumes, "We have someone here who will be detained the instant they venture outside." Jill speaks up, stating, "The leader of the Winged Serpent Knights has returned after being allocated elsewhere, and George has assembled the 3 dukes and the superior officials in the metropolis to unveil the celestial blade. He must have instructed the lords from every region to search for me." Jill continues, frustrated, "While we're sitting here cultivating produce, our prospects of remaining concealed are diminishing. What do you intend to do if we're discovered tomorrow?" But the others simply shrug and respond, "There's nothing we can accomplish presently. We possess no funds, no associations. With nothing to utilize, there's nothing to be done." They even chuckle, which infuriates Jill. She snaps, "Fine, I'll even do what's indicated in the document. The Winged Serpent Knights are seeking recruits, even without my magic. No one can vanquish me. I'll enlist, progress through the ranks, and that way we'll acquire funds, associations, and intelligence." She glares at them and declares angrily, "I don't believe anyone has an issue with that." Silence descends upon the group as she storms out. Zeke pursues her, admitting frankly, "I'm weary as well." The others remain behind, with the king remaining with Camilla. Jill and Zeke eventually arrive at the town, which she notes is the fortress of Duke Neutral, one of the 3 prominent dukes. She remarks, "Since this is the lineage's homeland, are the Winged Serpent Knights present here?" Zeke confirms, "Indeed, they are the elite among the elite." Jill contemplates to herself, "No wonder so many individuals are assembled here, eager to become Winged Serpent Knights." As they stroll, they spot wanted notices of the prince. Jill remarks, "So he's officially a runaway now, is he?" She gestures to the poster and adds, "And this image is dreadful. Couldn't they locate a superior one?" At this moment, Zeke recalls the king's words to him. Attend to Jill. She's intelligent but unfamiliar with the operations of our kingdom, and more importantly, she's still youthful. I have no desire to obstruct her path, and I don't wish her to despise me for it." Zeke had concurred, replying, "Yes, I'll shield her. That's my responsibility." The king had then informed him, "If it becomes unavoidable, surrender me to my paternal uncle if it ensures Jill's protection. Do it, Knight of the Winged Serpent's bride." Zeke had been astounded by this, pondering if the king apprehended betrayal by the leader or someone within their group. Back in the present, Zeke and Jill notice there's only one wanted notice of the prince. Zeke comments, "It appears they've concealed the rest of us." Jill inquires, "Do you believe Lady Camilla is all right?" He responds, "We simply have to trust her. What other recourse do we have? Should we halt here?" Jill shakes her head. "Not yet. Let's acquire a substantial meal first." Suddenly, they hear clamoring in the distance. It transpires the winged serpent knights have been dispatched on an urgent undertaking. They encounter a group of knights encircling a soldier from the castle, disputing, "How much longer are we going to tarry?" The evaluation is about to commence. At that moment, a colossal winged serpent materializes and commences assaulting individuals. Jill immediately leaps into action, rescuing a knight and reassuring him, commence evacuating the vicinity. The southern pathways appear unobstructed. She seizes his blade and prepares to combat the winged serpent. The knight cautions her, "Don't be foolhardy. That blade won't be effective against winged serpent scales." But Jill contemplates to herself, "The blade cannot penetrate the winged serpent scales. I'll have to target the interior of its legs." Then Jill wounds the winged serpent, but surprisingly, the winged serpent remains stationary, exhibiting no response. Jill is perplexed, and soon the leader emerges, mounted upon a small winged serpent. He declares that they succeeded in the trial. Jill and Zeke are stunned to discover that the entire occurrence was merely an assessment. Jill inquires about the water feature that was demolished during the altercation, and the leader explains that the water feature was already slated for destruction. He adds that the winged serpent they confronted is one of the winged serpent knights, exceedingly astute and thoroughly trained to adhere to such directives, which necessitate immense reliance and discipline. Meanwhile, we observe Emperor Hades observing Jill from afar. He informs a young woman beside him that Jill will be his spouse, and that he cherishes her deeply because she's amiable and captivating. The woman inquires, "Were you the one who halted the winged serpent?" Hades replies, "Maintain that as a secret from Jill. If she discovers, she'll presume the assessment outcomes weren't impartial." She then inquires, "Can't you utilize winged serpents to reclaim the metropolis?" Hades explains that it would be illogical, and with Rafi's potency diminishing, the kingdom's security has deteriorated as well. Suddenly, Hades hears a voice utter, "I'm solitary." He swiftly pivots, startled. The woman inquires as to what troubles him. He dismisses it, stating nothing. The setting transitions back to Jill and Zeke. They're approached by the same young woman, who introduces herself as Hadis Teos Rave, the initial princess of the Rafi kingdom and the leader of the winged serpent knights. When Jill perceives her, she realizes Hadis is the identical female from her vision at the commencement of the installment, the one who had ended her own existence. Jill extends her hand, greeting Hadis cordially, and they exchange civilities.